Brings us back. Nope.
Don't like that?
Nope.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Hey, welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan, where we have good conversations with good people, and any good conversation worth having is worth having drunk. Unfortunately, today, the only people here are us, so not too many great ones. But cheers anyways, bud.
What are you saying? Not too many great ones. We can come up with some rabbit out of our butt shit type shit.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to have a great conversation today. So two things that we want to accomplish today. One, answering any questions around marketing. We would love to have that happen in the comments. So if you do have any questions around marketing that we can help you out with, and actually we could even answer the one that you took a screenshot of earlier today around how to get your Google business profile back if you wanted to. But then the other thing that we wanted to talk about today,
or if they want, you don't want to ask it publicly, it might be a private question and you want to remain anonymous, hit us up via the text line 719-824-1377. That number one more time, 719-824-1377. I just want to go, let's get ready to rumble. Anyways.
You putting it up like that reminds me of like the old 1990s call-in talk shows.
Yeah.
Like, hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. The other thing that we did want to talk about is a book that Thaddeus recently read / listened to called The Hard Things About Being Hard. Sorry, The Hard Things About Hard Things.
I mean, it's pretty easy to be hard.
But yeah, that was...
Unless we're in track pants.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we could dive into as well. It's a great book from Ben Horowitz, and diving into how CEOs handle crisis and crisis moments. So definitely something that we could dive into as well. So yeah, let's start with that. Why don't you give us a little rundown of the book, Thad?
All right. So The Hard Things About Hard Things. So Ben Horowitz is the author of it. He's actually a partner at one of the venture capital firms, Andreessen Horowitz. Was actually one of the original founders of the internet back in the mid-90s when Netscape came out. They actually pivoted that Nets. He was an employee, I guess, wasn't a founder there, in working through that, and then went on to actually early cloud computing and cloud campaigns with Loud Cloud. And so now you look at what the cloud has today. I mean, if they would have stuck through it, they would have probably been worth more than what they sold their business for, of 1.6 billion with a B on there. But it was just his trials and tribulations of going from an employee to a founding CEO and building a business that you exited for 1.6 billion, and being a founding CEO, not somebody who had come into the business with years of experience. He came in with growing the experience with the business and learning things as he went. And it's actually funny. One of the topics that I didn't even write down, but sparked my memory bank on that was that, the notion of, are people born a CEO? Are you born with this natural ability to be one? And the answer to me is no. You're not born with the natural ability to be a CEO. You learn how to be a CEO through failing forward in the trials and tribulations, in surrounding yourself with great individuals that can help bring you up as a business owner. And so we look at, let's look at the HVAC space, right? Well, guess what? There's lots of businesses who have been in your exact same situation and scenario where you are right now. Middle of July, no calls. Middle of July, don't know what to do because you're so booked out, and you got to determine on whether you want to hire another person or not. Or you have a team of 100 people and you're trying to get to a team of 200 people, or you're trying to grow from 10 million to 20 million. Like, there's people everywhere in this industry that have been in your exact same shoes before. And so it's finding them and surrounding yourself with those great individuals.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yep.
I agree. So does Al Levy.
Yep.
In terms of most CEOs are not born CEOs. It's something that I think is incredibly appropriate for right now, in terms of what's happening in the greater economy and what's coming ahead. I mean, we've been living through some of the greatest times greatest economic times in the history of North America. The last recession was in 2008, 2009, and it's been nothing but prosperity since then. And a lot of business owners have not been punched in the face. And I mean, things are still really, really busy right now for a lot of businesses. And it's going to be interesting what's going to happen in the coming months, the coming years, because good times don't last forever. And you're seeing interest rates continue to climb as they're trying to slow down the economy because inflation is just getting way too high. So, what are the
One
two
part of that,
types of
it's actually like on that, with obviously lending rates going up, you talk about traditional, Bank of Canada here, down in the US adjusting their prime for that. And of course, traditional lending rates of what you see in mortgages, I would like to know, in perhaps we can reach out to a couple of the individuals when you have a financing company, are your financing rates now going to go up as well?
Mhm.
Something to also think through, right? Like now, if you're trying to qualify people at, whatever your percentages that you get, let's call it arbitrarily 5% of what they're going to get for their financing. We know that's generally a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower, but let's say 5%. Well, now are those people that you're qualifying now going to be qualifying next year at 10%? Like what's like keeping that in mind, in knowing that those things are coming and planning adequately for that, come the fall, and utilizing perhaps some of that in your messaging too, if your people are needing financing.
Yep, 100%. So when it comes to the two types of CEOs, what are they? What do they stand for? What are they good for?
Technically, there's four. They're both. I mean, like there's a one and a two, and one is those types of strategic CEOs. Those are the visionaries. Those are the great at finding a path that the company can follow, like a Bill Gates, right? A two is somebody who prefers execution and managing over researching and trying to make the decisions. They're the practical CEOs. So that's one way to look at the different types of CEOs that you have there. But the other part of it, so if you know that you're a one, if you're a strategic thinker, a visionary, you need to surround yourself with others that are in your executive circle that are twos. If you're more of a two, you need to you prefer that execution and managing over that research. Well, you need to surround yourself with more of the ones. But one of the other fascinating things that I really enjoyed from it was the peacetime versus wartime CEO. And it was actually, it's, I think in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of peacetime CEOs. And I think as things are going to transition and unfold in the economic uncertainties that may lie ahead, you're going to see a lot of wartime CEOs. And what's the difference between a peacetime and a wartime CEO? Well, in its essence, a peacetime CEO are one of the ones that are just keeping the peace. They have multiple products. All products are doing well. They're not necessarily needing to, they're abiding by the rules of the organization and doing those sorts of things. Now, the other part of that is the wartime CEO. When you look at a wartime CEO, you as an organization have one bullet left in the chamber, and that's what you're trying to get your success around, is that last ditch effort. You look at tons of great organizations in terms of how much they've almost failed. You look at Nike, right? I mean, if you ever read or listen to Shoe Dog, phenomenal book about Phil Knight and the story of Nike, how many times that company almost went tits up, but he had that last bullet in his chamber, and he was like, screw it, I'm just going to do everything in my power to be able to get things done that I need to get done. But also looking at that, saying, okay, well, what are the right types of people that you want to attract into your organization? What are you needing the most in your business? And the story is HVAC ever peacetime? It can be with the right people. I don't know who that is, but I have a guess. But
I'll pull it up here in a second.
yeah. So, but when you think about the key story, right? You want to attract great people into your organization, and how do you do that? Well, you do a great interview process. But one of the stories from the book was, when Ben Horowitz was talking about this one top salesperson that he wanted to hire, and his board of directors were all saying no. Everybody around him was saying no. The guy sent over 75 references upon request within like 5 minutes of him asking. He called every single one of those references, and every single person gave the guy a glowing review. One person reached out and says, I don't think you should hire Bob. I don't remember the guy's name. I don't think you should hire Bob. And he said, well, why? So he asked them all these questions. Well, was he a good salesman? Yeah. Was he great at rallying troops? Yeah. All these things said yes. He's like, well, if all things are yes, why should I not hire him? He's like, well, I don't think he's a great cultural fit. Well, what do you mean? He's like, well, I had a team of 50 salespeople in the room, and I'm paraphrasing some of the story here. So if you've listened to it, you're like, it wasn't 50 people. I'm paraphrasing as best as I can from when I listened to it. He goes up to the podium. He had a message to deliver, and his message was, if every single one of you, if you don't sell $500,000 worth of X product this quarter, you're fired. And walked off the podium. And in that moment, he knew, it was like, okay, I'm hiring this guy. Yeah, was he not great cultural fit? Absolutely. But he 10x the results of the organization because he had one bullet left in the chamber. And that's the difference, right? If it was a peacetime and you're not behind the 8 ball, well, you probably wouldn't hire that guy, right? So getting clear on what you need to do in order to be able to achieve the goals that you want was a fascinating part of that book.
No, it's so true. And that's the constant balance of and the dichotomy of leadership. And this was another book that I just read, talking about the different opposite ends of the spectrum that you can live on as a leader. You have to be humble, and you have to know when to take charge. You have to know when to hire the guy who's just going to get shit done, even though he's not a good fit for the culture. And you have to know when to hire purely based on culture and cultural fit. So there is that dichotomy of leadership where you always have to place somewhere in the middle of that and balance, what are the positives and negatives that are going to come out of this? Are we going to survive as a business if we don't make this hiring decision right now?
Or firing decision, when you look at being a leader, and I'm just going to exchange the word CEO for leader, because at the end of the day, if you're running your own business, you're a CEO, but you're also a leader. And the tough part about, and this is why the book, aptly called the hard things about hard things, is that when you are a CEO, when you are a leader, when you are running your business, you're going to have to make tough decisions that ruffle feathers.
Right.
Like there's sometimes there's no way around it. But the other part too is that if you make a tough decision and that decision is gonna happen, don't hide behind it. Don't wait for that negativity or the decision to trickle out and go by the wayside, right? Because it's going to come out. If you get in front of something and you get head on into it and you get the buy-in of your team, what was the wording that I wrote down on that? Be honest and upfront about bad news, and your entire company will benefit from it. If you can rally your people around something that may be coming, they're going to respect you more as a leader and have buy-in. And again, to go back to that book, right? One of the examples he gave, I think the team was 70 people at the time, 100 people at the time, and they needed to get this one product out, and they were behind the 8 ball. They originally pegged it for 18 months, but they had 6 months to do it. So he went to every single one of his team members and says, guys, the next 6 months are going to be hell. It's going to be absolutely atrocious. We're going to be needing 12, 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week. He's like, that's just the reality. He's like, I will give every single person one evening where you do not have to come back to the office after going and being around your family. So you can take off at 4, you have the entire night, but we're going to need you for the next 6 months. And I can promise you it'll be well worth it at the end of the 6 months. And knowing this, if you were not committed, I will not hold that against you. I will, in fact, try to find you a next job. I'll write you a glowing review letter from me for your next position. Who's in, who's out? One person left. Every single person was there because they were upfront about it and they got the buy-in of it. And that's the other part. I think of, like a great example of this, right? Stacy and Mike Four. Mike Four on was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
A couple weeks ago. Yep.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, and he talked about breaking down in their entire business. They grew to 2-3 million. And they're like, shit, our culture was done wrong. Well, they stripped it all back. They got rid of people, and they told people exactly what they're doing. And if you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. That's cool. They had people that were in, and they rallied with. And they stuck with them. And when you do that, you can have a strong organization.
1,000%. In the dichotomy of leadership, they talk about how your people need to understand your why. Why is it that you're making this decision? Why is it that we need to do this? Exact same example there with him, right? He was able to get very crystal clear on why it was that he needed his staff and his people to work the extra hours. So he got full buy-in from them. They crushed the project. They got it out in time, right?
Yep.
If you don't take the time to explain why it is that the process is changing, things aren't going to change.
Yep.
Nobody's going to buy into it. And you're just going to sit in this stagnant position wondering why your people aren't doing what you're asking them to do. The reality is you need to get that full buy-in from them, and you need to do it by being transparent and vulnerable with them.
Yes. I'm going to kind of skew this a little bit, and I'm going to go with Al Levy's comment because I saw this and I wanted to chat about it. My company always grew in slowing times. We stepped up marketing and acquisition, and I want to chat on that because obviously we've been in marketing since 2014, somewhere around there, 2013, and came into it in. I'm not going to say recession, but a depressed economy in Alberta, because it wasn't a full-blown recession, but it was certainly depressed. And one of the things in terms of, and I did a deep dive on research on this, we're coming into a recession. Largest one, mayonnaise or Miracle Whip. Aren't they like one and the same thing? Or are they
I think he might have just swore at Jason by saying that.
So mayonnaise or Miracle Whip? That's the question. He asked us. We ask us anything, mayonnaise or Miracle Whip. I'm going to go with mayonnaise for sure. Especially Hellman's. I like some Hellman's. Actually, I think that might be. Yeah, that's not Miracle Whip. That's mayonnaise. So, anyways, back to the idea of the coming recession. Those that are going to be, and you can actually do history on that. Like you can do your own research on this. Don't just take my word for it, because the research is out there. That and this is where they started studying it around end of World War II. You are Jason. You can ask us anything. So they started studying this around the end of World War II, when advertising really became prevalent as in our economy. I mean, advertising's been around for a long time. It's not just started in World War II. It became really prevalent in our society after World War II. One of the things that they've studied since then is that every major recession, every dip in the economy, those companies that actually increase their marketing spend and double down on the advertising grew when the recession was over and outperformed their competitors by over 200% growth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's crazy. And so people think, well, why? If people aren't buying, why should I spend more money in marketing? Because guess what? It's cyclical, guys. It's every 5 to 7 years you get a boom and a bust. It's cyclical. So if you know that you're going to be in a bust and you want the boom times, well, spend money now. So that way, when the boom times come, guess what? People remember your name. It's crazy. I wanted to touch on that because it was a genius thing that he mentioned. So, and of course, if you do need marketing, like Jason Julian on Purpose Media, ask for his company, and that's us.
I was just trying to pull something up here because there was something that I watched, and it's funny how even in business, it really mirrors what's happening in an investor profile as well. When you look at people who are investing money and investing into the stock market is the one place where when things go on sale, people sell instead of buy. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's the exact same thing in business. It's, sales are running away. So I'm going to pull back my marketing spend so that I get less business coming in and I make less sales. Right. Like you need to go against what it is that feels like a natural intuition and a natural instinct. But even when we look at, what happened in 2020 with COVID, there was a company that I was meeting with here locally, and I was talking to them about advertising and marketing. And this is before we really focused solely on HVAC and the home services, but they were a tire replacement and oil change company that was mobile. So they come out to your house and do it at your house. Well, they invested into TV advertising in March and April of 2020. Right when everything started to shut down, the TV companies lost all their ads. Most advertising companies lost all their ads because every business freaked out. They didn't know what was going to happen. And this company instead chose to dive right into it. It cost them $500 to do a TV ad, which is just ludicrous because they had no commercials running. So they needed to get someone. They offered to do full production of the commercial. And at that time, what was the one thing that most people were watching on a daily basis? It was the local news. Yeah. They wanted to find out what was happening in the world because this crazy freaking virus just showed up and nobody knew what the fuck it was or what was going to happen with it. We know a little bit more now and it's not so scary. But the reality is at that time, that's what people were freaked out about. And so they were watching the news. This business exploded coming out of COVID. It was remarkable to talk to them afterwards. They couldn't hire fast enough. They couldn't take care of all the calls that they were getting and all the call volume that they were getting. It was remarkable. And especially at a time where people were scared to go out, right? And business was having to be closed. This business was mobile, so they couldn't shut them down. It was phenomenal to see them dive in and go against the trend and against the current. But to buy when other people are selling, I think is a really important idea and methodology to remember heading into this economic winter that we're going to be experiencing.
Well, literally it'll be winter. What's the Warren Buffett quote? Be
fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful.
There you go. Right. And that epitomizes it. Right. Yeah. But the reality is like, look, marketing is the easiest line item to cross off a budget, and cross off an expenditure. Because it's one of those things like, wow, I don't need to spend money in marketing. Well, no, you do need to spend money on marketing if you want to continue to even maintain your business through a down economy. So, random question, Evan.
Oh
yeah. 1, 2, or 3. I got 3 pulled up here for you.
I'm an all the way kind of guy, so give me number 1.
Yeah. Right. What has been on your to-do list the longest?
Spend more time with my kids. Yeah.
Very honest answer.
Yeah. I like more quality time with them. Definitely.
I like that. They say that, when you're, sometimes people say, well, I was too busy building my business. I didn't get to spend enough time with my kids. Well, no, it's just, you have to adjust your priorities, right? And I'm not saying you don't spend time with your kids. I know that you do, because we've had conversations with that. So I'm not saying Evan works all the time. He does spend time with his kids. He's talking like quality one-on-one. He's got 3 of them. So that's part of, making sure that you spend time with your family while you're doing everything else.
Totally.
Yeah. All the way kind of guy, Evan Hoffman. You.
Yeah, we could put that one on a t-shirt.
There
all right.
Go.
Your turn. 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah. Well, I like number 3.
Perfect. If you were
two.
Nope. No pulling out now. If you were a vegetable, what vegetable would you be?
Eggplant. Oh shit! I thought you were talking emojis. No, eggplant. It's the final answer.
Nice.
Oh man, this is what happens when we don't have guests and we just drink.
That's it. Yep. All right. Here's another random question for you. 1980 Fortune 500 list. Out of the top 10, how many are still on the top 10 list today?
2.
Incorrect. Only 1. ExxonMobil.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yep.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So that's how quickly it can change, right?
I feel you have a thought. You have a expanding thought on that.
Well, it just kind of goes back to that idea of investing during bad times, right? You think of what the economy was like in the 80s. Then you had the dot-com crisis, you had the recession and all that shit. Companies pulled back on marketing, right? And the economy changes and technology shifts, and you have to think about 2 important things in your business: marketing and innovation. That's it. Focus on those 2 things and you'll be successful as a business.
I would also say, well,
they'd fall into those 2 categories.
People, products, profit, in that order. Right. And so that's where I'd push back a little bit on that. However,
as a leader, those are the 2 things you really shouldn't delegate.
Yes.
Have other people executing, but you're the head of those 2 things.
The visionary, yes. But I do want to touch on that people, products, profit, and that's the 3 Ps. People, product, price, however you want to say that. And this is something that I've said this numerous times, even before reading the book, that we were chatting about. When you focus innately on your people, when you have their best interest at heart, you you have I kind of want to answer that question.
We will.
All right. So when you focus innately on your people and you make sure that your people are taken care of, this, by the way, is not just your employees, but also your customers too. We're going through a website. I was rereading a website for a client, just some things there that they were unhappy with. So I stepped in to help out. and was reading on it, and they talked emphatically about their customers, but that's their people, right? When you care, and this goes back to that principle before of rallying your troops around any decisions that you want to make within the business that may be uncomfortable or that may ruffle feathers. If you show that you care about them, they're going to rally behind you as well. And then obviously your product is second into that, but your profits are third. And I think a lot of organizations focus on the profits first. And I'm like, obviously you have to focus on profits. I'm not saying don't ever focus on profits. We're running a business to make money, or you should be running a business to make money. So you want to make sure that you have good profits there. If you treat your people the right way, they're going to rally behind whatever price you want to charge, as long as it's done ethically and they're all on board. And you're going to have greater profits as a result. So do keep that in mind.
Right. No, 100%.
Yep.
Jason, Julian, you definitely made us laugh. So we got a couple questions that came in from Jason. First one, how has your business benefited since partnering with Julian Heat and Air for marketing purposes?
I would say tremendously. So Jason was, I think, like our second HVAC client that we ever had when we started into the HVAC world, and just absolutely crushing his results. But the thing that I love about you, Jason, is that you're not scared to preach from the mountaintop about good things and bad things in your business. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of good things, and you know what? If we did bad things, I would expect you to preach from the mountaintop about how we've done bad things as well. But then we would have a conversation about it up front too, because honesty and transparency. So I would say it's benefited tremendously from it. So more than we even know, and I think he even knows.
Absolutely. No.
Now, the other question for Jason is, how has your business benefited since partnering with On Purpose Media for marketing purposes? So I already know the answer to that one, but
yeah, it's been pretty all right, I think.
Yep.
Question number 2: did your viewership increase with when Gene Slade was a guest on your show?
Sadly, yes.
For that one episode, it absolutely did. People tuned in. There was a lot of comments, a lot of banter in the chat. If you want to go find that episode, it was from last month sometime. Just scroll down in the group, and I'm sure you'll find it somewhere in there. Yeah, there was a lot of heated comments going back and forth on that one, and I think that's something. It's interesting when you actually look at how Gene runs his business. That's something that he truly does thrive off of. He is not afraid to stir the pot in order to generate more attention for himself. Good attention or bad attention, at the end of the day, it's still attention, and he's grown his business as a result of it. So I think there is still something to learn just from that topic itself. And that's, again, that dichotomy of running a business. Do you care more about being known, or do you care more about people and culture and making sure that people feel good? It's an interesting dichotomy that you have to kind of, again, find that middle ground on what's comfortable for you.
Yep. Speaking of culture, our Mallory, who is our client success specialist, she tunes in on the background of the show, helps us out with a lot of our things going on. She asked a question: hustle culture versus rest culture, which is better? And I'm going to say neither.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with a balanced culture. And by that, it's kind of a combo of the two. Work hard, play hard, enjoy your downtime. One of the things her and I were actually, the three of us were chatting before the show. I was sending some messages at 9:30, 10 o'clock my time, which was 11:30, 12 o'clock her time in our Google chat. And she responded to one of them. And then the next one I sent, I'm like, in brackets, you do not need to respond to these messages if we're sending them outside of your working hours and you're not working. Just ignore it, pick it up the next day. They're not urgent. Just because we're working doesn't mean that you need to work. And having this idea of a work-life balance within your culture, within your team, I've chatted about this numerous times, but I think people are overworked and under-vacationed. And under timed off. And there's something to be said about, and I think the stat, actually Josh Crouch had it on one of his posts, and I dropped the stat that it's around 50 to 60% of Americans. Canada is a little bit lower in their number. It's probably around 40%, 30% don't use their full vacation time in a year.
Mm-hmm.
It blows my mind. You get 2 to 3 weeks of vacation time, you don't even use it all. Why? Just take your time, recharge your batteries, because when you come back refreshed, when you come back recharged, you can accomplish more.
Right.
So,
well, and 50% of statistics are made up. So, take what you will out of that.
Yeah, that was a study. That was his thing.
No, but
there we go. Jason's answer, by the way, my business is crushing it because of the work that we both have done. I really appreciate how in depth you guys are with helping me gain customers. Kudos. So there we go.
appreciate it, Jason.
And he also has love for Mallory. Mallory is a beast. She's been taking over his account and doing phenomenal things.
Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting, even that old story of the old man and chopping down the trees with the young woodcutter out in the forest, chopping down trees. Old man comes in and they made a little wager around, who could chop down a tree the fastest. And so they start going at it. The young guy thinks he's just going to crush it, and he just starts chopping away, and he's going hard. And he looks over at the old man after about 15 minutes, and the old man's just sitting there taking a break already. He's like, oh man, I got this in the bag. So he starts chopping harder. Old man's up again, chopping again. And then he looks over again. Another 20 minutes later, he's sitting down again. And he's like, this is ridiculous. He's taking another break already. I knew I could beat this guy. And it was something like they were going to, the loser had to chop down all of the wood for both of them to meet their quotas for the day. And sure as shit, the old man's tree falls down faster than the young guys. And he can't figure out why the hell this old man beat him. And so he goes over and he asks him, he's like, how did you beat me? This doesn't make any sense. I kept looking over and you were taking breaks constantly. And the old man says back to him, he says, I wasn't taking breaks. I was sharpening my axe.
There you go.
Taking a pause to sharpen the axe so you can come back and be better and more efficient is essential to success in business. It's not about hustling harder. It's about hustling smarter.
I like that. Well, a perfect, I think, segue into wrapping up our short episode for today, because it's just the two of us, so we don't need to talk you guys' ears off for too terribly long. I think you guys hear enough of us. So I do want to thank Evan for going through today and doing a show with no guest. But I do have one last question for you, Evan.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah. What is one question you wish people would ask you more, but they don't?
How did you attract such an incredibly handsome business partner?
Ooh, thank you. Yeah. So how did you attract such an incredibly handsome business partner?
I mean, we were at the water cooler and all the other ones were taken, and I was the last one left. So he's like, hey man, you want to go start a business? I said, sure. He's like, if this business doesn't go well, are you okay with us not being friends at the end of it? I was like, hell yeah. And away we went.
Right. I mean, the first part, not true. Second part, definitely true.
100% true.
We've chatted about that on the show. So awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in today to a short episode of our show. So and of course, unless you have something to wrap up with, I was going to say we chat a little bit about marketing. So of course, if you do want to reach out to us, you want to chat a little bit about marketing and how we can help your business, on purposemedia.ca/book-a-call, and we will put that note in there or that link in the show notes for you for later. So
yeah, just wanted to give one last shout out to all the people in the comments: Al Levy, Jason, Julian. Thank you both for your contributions. Stephanie Smith was the one in the group who was showing up as Facebook user.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much for your contributions. And Josh Crouch, the dude that was born a CEO. So thanks so much for tuning in, everyone.
Awesome. I almost just hit end broadcast and I didn't even do this video. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, two quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of this show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to introduce this to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they